Why? Because it feels so goddamn good.
Hey, what's up everybody? It's Prone here and welcome to the second episode of Prone's Picks, where I'll be talking to you about some of my favorite, lesser favored filmmakers and films. Now, I just want to start off by giving a big shout out to everybody that tuned into the first episode and commented and gave me love. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, on today's episode, we'll be talking about underappreciated and underseen horror sequels. Okay, so we all know about the more popular horror sequels like the Evil Dead 2s and the Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors, but what about some of the less popular ones and underseen ones? Well, here are a few of my recommendations. Now, the Conjuring universe has really expanded over the years and often with mixed results. For every Conjuring 2 we have, we also get a Curse of La Llorona. Now, for me though, one of the strongest entries in the series is the Annabelle franchise. Now, most people would say that the second film, Annabelle Creation, is the best film in the franchise, and look, I find that hard to disagree with, but for me, my favorite in the franchise and the most rewatchable one is Annabelle Comes Home, the third installment in the series.
Need to turn around, pretty bad accident up ahead.
Got anything we can do?
You a doctor or something?
Or something.
After wreaking much havoc across the land, the Warrens have brought Annabelle back to their little artifacts room so it can cool its jets for a bit. Whilst babysitting the Warrens' daughter, babysitter Mary's friend Daniela accidentally awakens the room's evil spirits. It soon turns into a night of terror and mayhem as the trio try to avoid the wrath of the evil spirits and stop Annabelle once and for all. I went into this one with very low expectations and ended up being pleasantly surprised. It's a lot lighter in tone than a lot of the other Conjuring universe films, which I think was a very good decision by the director or producers or whoever made that decision. Having Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga back in the lead roles of Ed and Lorraine Warren really gives the movie credibility. But for me, it's the trio of young actors that really make the movie shine, especially young McKenna Grace, who plays the Warrens' daughter Judy. The attention to detail with the costume set and overall production design is also first class. It may be PG-13 horror, but don't get it twisted. What the movie lacks in R-rated gore and violence, it certainly makes up for with some genuinely well put together scare sequences. Now, like I said before, while I do think that Annabelle Creation probably is the best entry in the series, I just think that this one is a lot more fun and has great replay value. It's kind of a gateway horror, and I think it'd be a really good one to watch with the tweens on Halloween. Annabelle Comes Home is currently streaming on Netflix. Now up next, we have a sequel to one of the most popular horror comedies of the 80s, Fright Night Part 2.
Welcome to Fright Night.
Fright Night 2. I kill vampires.
After a few years of therapy, our hero Charlie Brewster, now in college, is convinced that Jerry Dandridge was a serial killer posing as a vampire. But when Jerry's sister Regine turns up in the guise of a mysterious performance artist seeking revenge, Charlie must reunite with Peter Vincent, Vampire Slayer, to face Regine and her posse of evil minions. Now, Fright Night Part 2 really benefits from having a solid director in Tommy Lee Wallace, a veteran horror director who's responsible for another great horror sequel in Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which doesn't turn up on this list, but I'm still a huge fan. It also scores bonus points for bringing back two of the main stars from the first film, William Ragsdale as Charlie Brewster and the always wonderful Roddy McDowall as Peter Vincent of Vampire Slayer. Also, our boy Brian Thompson, aka the villain from Cobra, is back again as a bug-eating evil minion.
You won't do it, pig. You won't shoot.
Along with good performances from the leads and most of the supporting cast, the movie's biggest strengths lie in its visual design and special effects. It's lit and shot so damn well that it looks like the most expensive glammed up 80s film clip of all time. The practical effects for me are even better than the original, and there's some really well done set pieces as well. Fright Night 2 is an unnecessary sequel to be sure, but it is definitely loads of fun and worth a watch. There's a nice HD rip of this one on YouTube, streaming for free, so check it out. Coming up next, we have the often maligned and black sheep of the Scream franchise, Scream Part 3.
What do you know about trilogies?
Well, all I know about movie trilogies is that in the third one, all bets are off.
Hello, Sydney.
As bodies begin to pile up on the set of Stab 3, a movie sequel based on the Woodsboro murders, another Ghostface arises and draws them into a game of murder and mayhem. It's up to Sydney and the gang to find out the identity of the new Ghostface and put an end to him once and for all. Now, I must admit, as a pretentious 19-year-old in the year 2000, I really hated this movie. But after a recent podcast with a podcaster whose opinion I really trust went into bat for this movie, I thought I'd give it another try and was pleasantly surprised. Now, Kevin Williamson may be missing, but the screenplay is still really good. And Wes Craven's back in the director's chair along with most of the main actors from the first two. Wes really amps up the meta in this one, almost to the point where again it seems like he's spoofing himself, and I think that is absolutely hilarious. While it's definitely not as good as the first or second installments, Scream 3 is still highly entertaining and very rewatchable. Again, I think that low expectations are often the key as to whether you will or won't enjoy a movie. If you come into this one expecting to see Lost Highway or Hereditary, then you're going to be disappointed. But if you come in looking for a fast-paced Scooby-Doo type of whodunit adventure with a bit of the old ultra-violence on the side, then I think you won't be disappointed with Scream 3. Scream 3 is currently streaming on Stan. Up next, we have the sequel to the Clive Barker classic film Hellraiser, Hellraiser Part 2 Hellbound.
Time to play.
Hellbound. Hellraiser 2.
Now confined to a mental hospital, our surviving hero from the first movie, Kirsty, claims that her father's still in hell, being controlled by evil freaky-deaky demons, aka the Cenobites. Kirsty's S&M obsessed psychiatrist, Dr. Kennard, is intrigued by her story and becomes obsessed with the satanic puzzle box and the possibility of a doorway to hell. Kennard resurrects Kirsty's evil stepmother Julia from the first film, and they use Kirsty and fellow inmate Tiffany to open the box. Once the box is open, the Cenobites return only for Kirsty and Tiffany to run off to hell to find her father. Kennard and Julia proceed to follow them to the deepest depths of hell with the Cenobites close on their tails. Now this one definitely doesn't get the same love as the first one, and I'm not quite sure why. Is it because Clive Barker's only here as a producer and not director? Look, I'm not really sure. But for me, his fingerprints are all over the film. You can see it with the production design and the Cenobite designs, definitely. Whilst the original has some good practical effects, the overall effects haven't aged that well. I think the effects in the second film really hold up, and there's some real innovative stuff going on here, especially all the scenes shot in hell. It's really fantastical and original stuff that could only come from someone with such an amazing imagination as Clive Barker. Look, it's a super gory sequel. Maybe not as gory as the third one, which really ramps it up, but it's still very, very gory. So if you're of the faint of heart, then I definitely don't recommend this movie. But if you don't mind a little bit of gore and you like your horror with a smidgen of S&M, then I think this one might be your jam. Hellraiser 2 Hellbound is currently streaming on Amazon Prime. My final pick for the episode is the criminally underseen and underappreciated masterpiece that is 1983's Psycho 2.
Norman Bates is judged, restored to sanity, and is ordered released forthwith.
What about his victims? Don't they have any say? Can you restore them?
22 years after the original, Norman Bates has been judged as legally sane by a court of law and is released from a mental institution. Upon his release home to the infamous Bates House and Motel, Norman strikes up a friendship with a young waitress named Mary, who after being kicked out of her flat, ends up staying with Norman. Just as he starts to adjust back to his normal life, a string of murders occur in and around the Bates Motel. Has Mrs. Bates returned from the dead, or are the gruesome murders the handiwork of someone else? Now, Psycho 2 by all means should not have worked as a film. It's a sequel to one of the greatest films of all time, by one of the greatest directors of all time, one of the most beloved directors of all time. But for me, it more than works. It is a masterpiece in its own right. The direction by legendary Australian filmmaker and student of Hitchcock's Richard Franklin is superb. The cinematography is stunning and shot by frequent John Carpenter collaborator Dean Cundy, who shot the likes of Big Trouble in Little China, The Fog, Halloween, and freaking Jurassic Park, just to name a few. Having Anthony Perkins back as the deeply troubled Norman Bates gives the film even more credibility. He does an outstanding job as a man trying to start fresh whilst constantly questioning his own sanity. It's Perkins' acting and the great writing that make him a character in which you can truly empathise. Now, this movie does have a small cult following, but in terms of horror sequels, I truly think that it is an underseen and underappreciated gem, ready for a new generation of horror fans to rediscover or discover. Psycho 2 is currently available for rent on iTunes Movies and Google Play Movies. Well, that's my list of underseen and underappreciated horror sequels. But I thought I'd pop in a few other more popular horror sequels into my honourable mentions list coming up now, so enjoy.
He's watching you, friend, I guarantee you that.
Trick or treat. Hey, Mr. Cochran, just what is the final process?
Fellas, I was just kidding.
Witchcraft. To us, it was a way of controlling our environment.
Hey!
They're back.
Let me in.
Jason is back. He moves like a shadow, dark and silent.
Sorry you changed your mind?
He never utters a word. He doesn't even seem to breathe.
Where the hell's the corkscrew?
He simply kill me. Satan grows stronger.
You believe in possession, Father?
He has found a haven.
Come to take a little blood from you, Father.
He has taken possession.
The boy had been crucified.
Well, that's a wrap on episode 2, homies. Thanks for sticking around and checking it out. Much appreciated. I hope you have a fun movie-filled week. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and I will catch you next time. Peace.